Hi, I'm Dr. Giavonne Rondo, and I'm so excited to be here today with the start of Season 2 with Healthy Mind, Body, and Spirit, a show that's dedicated to the improvement of our entire society, but with a particular focus on the medical issues within the African American community here locally in the Kentuckiana area. With this season, we have so many different topics that we're going to talk about. We'll talk about some of the chronic medical conditions that we face, high blood pressure, diabetes. We are continuing to be in this pandemic, so we're going to talk about COVID-19 extensively. We're also going to be talking about racism in the medical field, telemedicine, and so many other topics. So I'm so excited to start this season with a focus on mental health issues. And today we have a wonderful guest, Dr. Stephen Patton.
Great. It's a pleasure to be here once again.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Rondo. Yes, I'm a family medicine physician with Norton Healthcare. I practice over in the Preston area. As we were discussing before, I recently got a promotion, so I was excited about that.
Yes.
Now I'm the medical director of community outreach. So,
Wow.
so I was really
awesome.
excited, yeah.
Moving on up in the world.
Trying
awesome.
to,
right.
hopefully I can continue to do my part like yourself and address those healthcare disparities and talk about those inequities that are out there.
Okay. And you're particularly focused on the community, so community outreach. So that's awesome.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, all right.
But yes, as you were saying before, to touch base on that mental health piece, I think that's very important, especially with us in the African American community.
So when we talk about just mental health, just overall, we generally have certain things that we kind of focus on, particularly depression and anxiety. For us, there may be some issues with post-traumatic stress disorder, also short for your PTSD, basically. And with this pandemic, I believe that is something that maybe all of us are really experiencing. So can you talk a little bit about those particular issues, depression, anxiety, and also PTSD?
Yes, especially, first I would kind of break down what do we mean by depression and anxiety. I know I have patients that are Burmese, and it was interesting that depression and anxiety didn't translate there. They didn't have a word for it, and they didn't really understand the meaning of it. But what if you say, hey, are you having a rapid heartbeat, or can you not sleep at night, or do you find yourself very irritable? Like, oh yeah, I have that. I can talk to you about that. And I feel like it's the kind of same thing in general, even in the African American community. When we start talking about this anxiety and post-traumatic stress, we start breaking down the meanings of those things from past traumas that's built in, those feelings of generalized anxiety or constant stress that we experience, or that constant mood of feeling down. They say, okay, I have some of those symptoms, but that depression and that anxiety, I don't have that. And I think that's those negative stigmas that we have in the community in general.
So really what you're talking about is really not naming the diagnosis, like saying depression or anxiety or PTSD or whatnot, but just kind of talking about certain symptoms that people may actually be experiencing, that a lot of us may be experiencing. So you're talking about maybe some irritability or difficulty with sleeping, and occasionally maybe feeling not even saying depressed, but kind of more sad or kind of down and not maybe doing some of the things that you would normally do.
Yes.
Okay.
But to get back to your question, as far as what I've noticed, those symptoms along in the pandemic, I think the pandemic kind of highlighted some of those things that were kind of affecting the Black community already, but it was able to bring it more to the surface per se. Because when we think about what are those signs of, even if we say anxiety and depression right now, the causes of that is the neighborhood. We have to look at those social determinants. Are you able to? Do you feel safe in your neighborhood? Do you feel like the neighborhood is deteriorating? The buildings? Do we feel like we have a safe space to congregate with each other and talk? The education system. Are we able to learn about how to discuss our emotions? Do we feel there's a place to do that? And without those things, that can lead to more anxiety and depression. And when we look at COVID and what the pandemic has done to us, it's causing that isolation when we were already isolated.
Already, yeah.
It's causing that financial burden when we're already struggling from bill to bill and trying to survive.
So it's actually made things worse overall. Just like we already have certain issues, certain, determinants that, make our health not as healthy or not as optimal. So the COVID-19 has just kind of opened the floodgates to make things even worse, it sounds like.
Yes, it's just more exposure now. People can see it, and even with the virus beforehand, the virus did the same type of role that the isolation has done. It has highlighted things that have already been out there. Like you were saying in the beginning, people with diabetes and obesity, hypertension, those are the same thing that the virus thrives on. Makes it an increased risk, right?
Wow.
So now you're seeing that although African Americans only make up 13% of the population, it was over 25% of the deaths and mortality was in that same community. Now, how is that? We only make up 13, but 20%, right? And it's because of those same things, those social determinants, which have led to different health, not only your mental health, but those other determinants, like we just said. And now you can see that gap, that health gap there.
It's widening, it sounds like.
And we have to address it now.
Yeah. And we should have been addressing it this whole time, but that's one of the reasons why this kind of a show and what we're trying to do here with Healthy Mind, Body, and Spirit is to not just expose those things, but talk about it, discuss it, and treat it, in the best way that we know how. And so doing things maybe a little bit differently and non-traditionally is one of the focuses of some of the things that we're doing here at St. Stephen through this network. So great.
Yes.
So do you have any statistics, could you, on a national, state, local level that talks about, the mental health for, the community overall?
Yes, and I think I'll touch back with that stigma again that the African Americans, we just don't talk about it, and I think we see it as a weakness or just a fear. And with that said, it's like some surveys have said, over 63% of African Americans view it as a weakness.
Like talking about the issues or having the diagnosis?
Mental health disorders. They view that as a weakness.
Okay.
And more than, I would say, 20% of those people of our African American population, more than 20% of those people experience more generalized anxiety and major depressive disorders and increased risk of suicide. So that's interesting to think about, that we're having an increased incident of these symptoms, yet we are on the other end, we are less likely to go seek treatment.
Wow. So it's almost like it's a double whammy, overall. Wow.
And then even with the numbers, worldwide is over 800,000 deaths of suicide around the world. That's like one death every 40 seconds or something. I'm not too good with math. But
is that per year?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's worldwide, though.
Yeah, worldwide.
But I mean, it translates across languages, across cultures. It's happening, and that was based off the World Health Organization. But when we bring that farther down, the increased risk of mental health disorders, you want to say, what are those major risks? And it would be violence. Having exposure to violence leads you at an increased risk of having a mental health disorder, and homelessness.
Yes, okay.
And what's significant about that is like I was saying before, 13% of African American population, but we make up about 40%. 40% of the homeless population.
Oh, wow. So we're only 13% of our nation's population, but then we make up 40% of the homeless population. Wow.
Yes,
That is
yes.
pretty significant.
That is.
And so is there issues with mental health disorders that make that more prevalent, or how is that explained even?
So my thoughts on this, and from the research that I gathered, I believe a lot of it is from the relics from the past. It's not only the side effects of slavery, and they got the Jim Crow era and the isolation, but it's that propaganda that led to that. Those social structures that were put in place, because to anyone, slavery or anything else that's not acceptable.
Right.
To one person to another, that's
Right.
not acceptable to do that to a person. So what did they do? They tried to break down the African American. They're less than human. They're not intelligent. We're doing them a favor. And how did they relay that message? Through certain types of propaganda, right? So people wouldn't forget. Yeah.
And so that's centuries and centuries ago to really be able to have that put into place, and to have slavery to have occurred for over 400 years. So that is just really major.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it plays a role still, that it's just modern day propaganda. It went from, oh no, they're just animals, to you get to the, oh, they're thugs, and listen to the hip hop music. What are they promoting there? Shoot them up, or disrespect to our women. It's not as much as empowerment talk, right? And also it comes with those myths that, oh, those black people are supernatural. They don't feel as much pain, right? So
it's just kind of perpetuating those myths throughout the years, throughout centuries, and it allows there to be kind of like a misperception of who we are as human beings, just overall. So it's, and so sometimes we do some of those things to each other. Maybe we look at each other in a different light than we would look at someone who has a different complexion, or comes from a different background. So wow, that's really deep, and whew.
Yeah.
So that's a lot. So so it sounds like there's historical issues that play a role. There's current problems that play a role. So what I'd like to talk about now is kind of what kinds of things can we do? What kinds of things can we as physicians, we can discuss things, but what can we do as physicians, but also what can people in the community do to help with the mental health issues, whether it be, not just, homeless people on the street or whatnot, but within, our families, within our church community. What can we do?
That's an excellent question. I believe there are many solutions based off the many of problems. So I think really trying to understand the cause of those anxieties or depressions or any mental health disorders. Was it because of violence that you were exposed to? Was it because you weren't financially stable? Is there ways to help with and aid in that? Are you getting your basic needs met? Food and shelter and water. If that's the cause, then we have to focus our needs on that. Was it based off of abuse, as far as alcohol? Not just so the kids, but if I'm an alcoholic parent that can't necessarily cope with those stressors, am I taking it off on my kids? And then what will my kids do? Like hurt people will hurt people. And
I've heard that a lot. Hurt people hurt people. Yeah.
Actually, I heard that on the TED Talk. So I've used that. It stuck with me.
Right.
And what I was thinking about was the switch. If I said, I'm going to go get the switch, I was like, oh, I know what the switch means.
Yes.
It's a cultural thing.
Definitely.
But what do we do as parents? Well, my parents did this to me. I'm going to do it to them.
Kind of perpetuating that.
Kind of perpetuates. So a lot of that is just doing what we're doing now and having those conversations as far as trying to figure out what's our cause of whatever mental thing we have. Because the real question is, do I have more control of it, or does it have more control of me? Because I feel like mental health is a balance and a well-being where it allows you to cope with everyday stressors. When you're not allowed to, or you're not able to compensate, and that stressor has more control over you, then that's when it becomes a problem. That's when you start seeing those side effects, some loss of sleep, irritable, right? But anxiety isn't always bad. You know, I have anxiety about needing to finish my project. If I didn't, I would never get it done, right?
It's a motivator.
Yeah. But at the same time, if I'm constantly thinking about how am I going to do with this presentation, what am I going to do, and I can't get sleep at night, I lost sleep, now I'm up at night, and then I do bad on the presentation because I was thinking about I was going to do bad on the presentation. I lost control of that, so I wasn't able to cope correctly. So it's that loss.
So there's a certain amount of, not necessarily mental health disorders, but there's a certain, features that kind of help to motivate us to do certain things. Like, like you're saying, having a little bit of that anxiety helps to motivate you to get some things done, but too much of it, can really be deleterious to health. And actually, I think you're talking also about just stress, just overall, certain stressors that really can motivate you. And there's a certain amount of stress that is important for us to survive. It's a survival kind of thing. But too much of it, that's where it really becomes an issue. And that actually can play a role, not just in mental health, but diabetes and high blood pressure and some of the other chronic medical conditions that we kind of face. So wow, so glad that you mentioned that, and how that there's good to it in a way, but then there's bad when it's just a little, just too much.
Yes.
So that's really great analogies.
And then I know you were saying, what can we do as a community? I think encouraging that and trying to break down that negative stigma. The mental health is the same as any other health. If I came to a friend and I kept telling them about the stomach pain I'm having, how bad it hurts, they're going to say, man, you need to get to the doctor. Why you keep playing around with this? You still have this. I tell my friend, man, I can't take anymore. I feel overbeared, but I'm pushing through. That culture, man, you strong. Keep pushing through it, man. I'm proud of you. It's never, hey, what you mean you don't feel control of it? You need to stop. You ever talk to somebody about it? Do we have those conversations? And that's the beauty of the church too. We have those people we can go and talk to, but we need that also in the community in general, where you can bring that conversation out in your friend and encourage them to talk to someone.
So kind of normalizing that, or just at least being able to express certain issues that may be occurring mentally, just as much as we do physically. Overall. So yeah, having the stomach ache or having a headache and having chest pain is important, but so is, not being able to sleep, feeling, down, feeling nervous about things, and having that on a regular basis. We should be able to talk about that as well. So it sounds like some of the things that we need to do is to, kind of be able to express and just know that certain, symptoms that we have or certain feelings that we have are completely normal.
Yes.
And normalizing that and being okay with it. And then the other thing is actually being able to go and find someone that you can even trust to talk to. And actually, it's funny, I heard someone say that, actually the Surgeon General, the former Surgeon General, Jerome Adams, say that trust is a social determinant of health. And so being able to actually go to someone and talk about, those kind of symptoms or those kind of feelings that they're having is really major. It's really major. So so maybe that's another thing, and that's where having family, friends, the church, is vitally important. So any other things that we can do to help with the mental health state of our community?
other thing is that isolation piece is very important. I think the way we've gotten to our civilization today and through survival is by that group mentality, that tribe mentality. And what do we see nowadays? It's more
the Lone Ranger, the
Lone
cowboy.
Ranger.
Yeah.
Even in a group right now, people are together and on their phone, isolated.
Yes.
We don't have that social interaction as much.
That connection.
Yeah.
That connection. I remember with the church here, one of the things that is the theme has been being connected to God, connected to each other, connected to community, just overall. So I think in some ways it's very important to kind of get back to that. So you're absolutely right. Not just being in a room with people, but being actually connected, and that's hard when you're supposed to be physically distant, and we should say physically distant, but we can still be socially connected. So, gosh, let's see, how do we even bridge that? How do we even stay connected, but stay stay physically distant? How can we do that?
Yes, that's the tricky part, right? I know there can be book clubs, and you can have discussions on that where everyone has common themes. You can do Zoom meetings. Still, that still is a thing that you can meet up with, or smaller gatherings where it can be a big group, but each person, we all break into groups, and we can do a project together that going out and giving back to the community. Maybe we can do a fundraiser. Each group does a different fundraiser, and then you can kind of switch off and forth and then give a report back and kind of say, hey, this is what we're doing with the community. And it's a lot of times you help yourself by helping others too. So by doing that, giving back to the community and talking in that group can also be something to.
And they can still stay physically distant, wearing their masks and all of that. Okay.
Mask up, wash your hands, keep your distance. Yeah.
Absolutely. One of the things I've heard too is if you have a pet, that actually would be helpful. I think there was a statistic that said that adoption of pets has gone up to a pretty high level within the whole, not just the United States, but the whole world. So more adoptions have occurred when it comes to the furry animals, and I know that I'm an animal lover, so that's very encouraging. But having a pet may actually help to deal with the loneliness or the isolation. So those are, I think, some really, really great tips.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's see. So Dr. Patton, on the show, Healthy Mind, Body, and Spirit, we discuss all these different topics, and we talk about what you can do for our lay people or for people in our community. But we also like to not just talk about it, we like to be about it. So what do you do, Dr. Patton, to stay mentally healthy as a physician?
Yes. Let's see here. What do I do? My initial mindset that's the first thing, and I realized that I can't control anyone but myself.
Okay.
I can make recommendations.
So it's a mental thing for you. So you kind of have it in your mind that, okay, I can control me, and then that's okay.
Yeah, and I have to do that because I can't have control over anyone else's.
Okay.
There's no way I can. And if I start thinking, what if I did this and they would, I can't do it. So
right.
I always say you only have control over yourself. So that's my first thing. And then if you either can accept a person for who they are, or you can walk away. And that's another thing.
Okay. And you know what? That's very important as a physician, because a couple of things that you do on a regular basis, and I know, is that you are advising people on healthier lifestyles and things to do. So you kind of give them this information and you just allow them to make the decisions for themselves instead of continuing to mentally say, did they do this, did they do that, and trying to control anything that people do. You just kind of give that information. So
yeah, make sure they're well informed, make sure they understand. And then I'm gonna bug them again once I see them again if there isn't that right. But from there, you kind of
let it go.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the other thing is I try to focus on the now in my head. That's another mental thing for me.
Okay. So staying present.
Staying present. I heard this thing before. It said like depression is a disease of the past and anxiety is a disease of the future.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, that stuck with me. I was like, all right, you got to just kind of stay right here.
Present.
Yeah.
I think that's why they call it a present. The now is a present. You know, and that's what we have. We don't have the past and we don't have the future. We have right now. So, okay, so staying present. So it's a mindset thing. So it sounds like for you.
Yeah, and then now I'm big into, I like working out. So I try to get my workouts in the morning.
Okay.
I do like P90X, or I do like an Insanity in the mornings and get my pre-workout in and be ready to go. And I also like practicing martial arts. So that's my big
So a doctor that actually practices what he preaches. Okay, so you get your mindset, you're present, you get up and you exercise early in the morning, do some P90, what is it, P90?
P90X, are we going to get in trouble for that? I do an exercise program. I know. No, just playing.
And then some martial arts. And I've heard martial arts is pretty good for your mental acuity, just overall. Tell us about that. And what kind of martial arts do you do?
So I've done different styles throughout the years. I initially started around the middle school. I've done kickboxing, and then I got into karate, Wei-Chi-Ryu, and then
what's that called?
Wei-Chi-Ryu.
Okay,
it's
I've never heard of that.
It's an Okinawan style karate.
Okay.
Deals with a lot of conditioning and strengthening the mind. Later on, I practiced that for quite a while. Later on, after med school and I lost everything, I came back. I started Krav Maga, which is a self-defense type style.
Is that from the Middle East?
Kind
of
yes.
Yeah.
And then recently I've been involved in martial arts, jiu-jitsu, and that's more of a grappling type style, and that's been really good. It's kind of like playing chess. Well, all the styles are kind of like playing chess. What is your opponent going to do?
Yeah,
how
what are they
to
trying
it?
to anticipate things.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Now, one more thing. We are here in the Louisville, Kentucky area, and so we, have had some extra things that have been stressors for our mental health overall, and that is some of the issues with police brutality and the Breonna Taylor issue. So just wanted to kind of talk about that just a tad bit. What do you think, or how has that affected our mental health just overall, just locally?
That's a great question, and I would like to cite a piece from Langston Hughes, and it is a dream deferred. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or crust and sugar over like a syrupy treat? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load, or does it explode? And I think that's exactly hit the button on what's going on across the world, and especially in Louisville. So much police brutality, and it's coming to light. So many injustices are being seen, and all of that PTSD and stress and anxieties that I've already been experiencing just kind of came to a head, and what we see are the protests that have emerged, that explosion.
So it's really a historical thing that has really been passed down, and wow, so you pretty much summed that up in a wonderful way, and thank you so much, Dr. Patton. This has really been a wonderful discussion. It's a tough one, and it's something that we don't necessarily talk about on a regular basis, but it's so vitally important in light of all the different things that are going on in our world, not just the COVID-19 or the current pandemic that we're in, but also, like you're mentioning, some of the social injustices that have really come to a head and have exploded, but these things have been festering and have occurred for really centuries. And now we have a camera on things, and now we have, cell phones and social media or whatnot to really show it throughout the whole world. So, and then not to mention some of the political issues that have occurred. So these are really, really important things to discuss. You can't fix a problem that you won't face. So I'm happy that we are actually, opening the book or opening the door to, mental health issues. And then I think, we need to continue to talk about them, continue to put them out there, have it as a normal part of your conversation. People should know their family history, should feel comfortable talking to their physician or their healthcare provider, should have trust in people that they, can go to for help, for mental health. And all of us have issues. All of us have issues where we may feel afraid or may feel sad or may have issues with grief or feeling down. And that's a part of just being human. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a part of being human, and we need to definitely normalize that. And so getting the help that we need, may take different forms. It may take the form of doing some of the things that you have mentioned. It may take the form of going and talking with someone who is a mental health therapist. So that's very, very important for people to know that. And so that's, just really appreciate you coming on and at least opening up the discussion. So I'm so happy that in this season 2 that we have, an open door to discussing, a very difficult topic. And we will definitely be continuing on with this discussion. And we're not going to stop. We want to, to help the entire world, but we really like to focus on our community here locally and what we can do moving forward. So we thank you so much, Dr. Patton, for coming in your new position as Medical Director of Community Outreach. You are doing a great job reaching out to us here in the community. And I want to thank you for joining us in this season 2 of Healthy Mind, Body, and Spirit. It's on SSC Live TV. It's Truth, Justice, Power, TV Our Way.